We're all cut from the same cloth. No matter our culture, no matter our gender, no matter our period in history.
And here's how it works. You think a thought, and the thought makes you feel a feeling. And the feeling makes you behave in a certain way, which you justify because you think the thought. So don't worry about changing the behavior, or indeed the feeling changed the thought.
What we need to do is we need to process our negative emotions in a systematic way, and I think there's a good way to do that.
I would say you're not the thoughts in your head. They're just thoughts. You can make up new ones.
So we got to remember our thoughts are not our thoughts. They're a blueprint that our mind, body, and psyche are trying to make real. And if you could only think better thoughts, you'd give your mind an easy job.
But humans are fascinated with what we repress, right? The most elemental law of human nature is that we deny that we have it.
We think that regret makes us weaker, when in fact, the research shows that, done right, regret can make us stronger, that we can enlist our regrets as an engine for forward progress.
First and foremost, you have to believe in yourself. Because if you don't have that fire, nobody else is going to believe in you.
If we can identify when we feel the ego, intuitively how the ego is interfering with our ease, and instead of resisting it, to stop. Sounds easy, but if you can stop and then breathe through your nose, out through your mouth, drop down to center, drop into the flow, drop into ease. If you can do that, stopping and dropping, you now can roll into what you want today.
People don't want to talk about that element pertaining to power, to people in power, to politics, particularly to culture, where it's all supposed to be about the art and everything is so elevated. So it's like it's a repressed thing, you know. We'll talk about sex, we'll talk about any kind of divergent human behavior, but power and manipulation, ew, no, I don't want to talk about that. And then in the self-help genre, which I never really imagined kind of falling into, but I guess I have, the books tend to kind of soft pedal all of that stuff. It's all about, it's almost as if we're angels and we're not these kind of primates that are hungry for power. And I just saw in my experiences in Hollywood, and before Hollywood, I had like 50 different jobs in every imaginable field you know, possible. I saw all kinds of power moves. I saw a lot of that dark side in motion, but nobody talks about it. Maybe novelists in fiction, or maybe in film, we kind of go into it. But humans are fascinated with what we repress, right? The most elemental law of human nature is that we deny that we have it, right? It's always the other people. I'm not a narcissist. I'm not aggressive. Oh, I don't have a dark side. No, I'm not irrational. No, none of those things, right? So we want to deny it. But it's so insanely irrational. We all come from the same origins. We can trace it back. They've done it genetically to like one woman, the source of Homo sapiens, like hundreds of thousands of years ago. We're all cut from the same cloth. No matter our culture, no matter our gender, no matter our period in history, we all have the same genetic components. We all went through the same evolutionary process, the same brains wired in the same way. Some people are deep, what I call deep narcissists, no doubt. And they're toxic and they're difficult. But if some people have that, how is it that other people don't have any of it? That's not possible. There must be something within all of us that would make us all prone to becoming deep narcissists. But some people, it makes them fall into that deepness. Others were able to save ourselves, right? But if aggression is something that's built into human nature, and I try and go through it, the whole history of it, right? So you're wanting to exclude yourself. People have posted comments on YouTube about my ranting about narcissism. They go, well, Robert, you're a snake oil salesman. That's absolutely ridiculous. I'm not a narcissist. 0.05% of people are known to be narcissists. I can bet you that the person saying that is a narcissist, right? Because the fact that you want to deny that you have this quality is a sure sign that you have it. You're in denial. You're trying to shine a great light on yourself. Look, I'm superior. I'm the one person in the world on this planet that doesn't have it. Man, you're a narcissist, right? That is a sure sign of it. So stop denying it. The Laws of Human Nature should be a painful book to read. It was a painful book to write because it throws a mirror on yourself. It makes you come to terms with some of your own nooks and crannies that you don't want to look into, right? You don't want to come to terms with the fact that you feel envy. But envy is the most common human emotion of them all. There's a deep history of it. I go into it in the book. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors, chimpanzees are prone to feeling envy. You feel it 50 times during the day, particularly on social media. You're just denying it. If you deny all of these qualities, how can you ever change yourself? You think that you're a Gandhi, but how can you be a Gandhi if you won't look at yourself and change yourself, right? The only way you can become good or kind of overcome some of these qualities is by looking at it, seeing the reality, and then confronting it, and then trying to change it. So if I come to terms, which I did as writing the book, that yes, Robert, you have definite narcissistic tendencies. All right, now I'm aware of it, and now I can begin to change it. I have to admit, being honest here, I've always been interested in deceit. I probably was somebody who was pretty good at it in my 20s, you know? I went through a period like that. I wasn't like a liar or something, but I was kind of an actor. And I'm not going to go deep into this story, but I lived in Paris when I was 21. I worked in a hotel there as a receptionist. And in order to get the job, I had to pretend that I was Irish. And I'm actually a middle-class Jew from Los Angeles. Never been in a church in my life. You know, I don't know what a mass is from anything, you know. I had to pretend I was Irish. I dated an Irish girl. I got another job in another company, still being Irish. So it taught me a lot about the art of deception. And part of able to pull it off was I studied. So I'm starting to work in the hotel thinking that I'm speaking French because I speak French, that no one will ever know that I'm not really Irish. But then I realized English people stay in the hotel, Irish people stay in the hotel, and they hear this funky ass accent. They know this guy's a liar. I'm going to be revealed, and it's going to be so embarrassing and shameful. So luckily across the street was an Irish pub. You know, one of those fortunate things in life. I would go there every day. I would study the people in there because there were a lot of Irish immigrants in Paris. I would study their mannerisms. I'm very good at mimicking, hearing the tone of their voice. I looked at how they dressed, their mannerisms. I studied it, and I got better and better at my accent. At first I had to tell people, well, I kind of spent time in the States, you know. But then I got so good I could fool Irish people. I learned how to dress. I learned how to go to church. I learned how to all the things, you know, that made me seem Irish. It's a bit embarrassing because it's something you can do when you're 21. I would never do that now. I would never feel comfortable doing that now. I'm revealing it to you here. But it taught me how easy it is to fool people if you have an air of sincerity and conviction, right? And I tell people, when you look at those around you, particularly politicians or people in the news or in the spotlight, and they're so full of conviction and they're so full of sincerity, et cetera, they're often covering up something else. They're trying to convince themselves of a truth that they know is not true. And so conviction is often a sign of somebody who's in a form of self-deception to lead to deception. My early history, my early training in becoming a different person, in being an actor, kind of taught me a lot about human nature and deception. You know, I feel like you can detect from signs in a person's face whether they're sincere or not, or what's really going on behind the mask that they're wearing. We have that ability because so much of human communication is nonverbal. It's a skill that was developed over hundreds of thousands of years by our ancestors before language is invented, reading the thoughts of other people so we could get along, before we could express things in words. We are masters at picking up those signals. You're just not paying attention, you're not learning it. But it's hard for the face to lie, right? It's even harder for the voice to lie. The voice is the last thing that you can use to lie. I know I had my Irish accent, but if somebody really saw through it, they would see kind of the bullshit that was going on. And so it's hard to train the face when you don't really feel joy. When you say you got a promotion, and I'm kind of secretly going, oh shit, Tyler's doing better than me in life, damn. Yes, that's great, Tyler. Oh, that's wonderful. Congratulations. The kind of tightness there is just revealing that, oh shit, he's doing better than I am, kind of thing, right? Whereas, wow, Tyler, that's fantastic. I'm really happy for you. There's a different look in the face. I just didn't do a good job right there, but it's a different look in the face, right? It's spontaneous, the face lights up. You can detect that from a million miles away, the difference. You're just not paying attention, right? The tone of voice when you're nervous and cramped and the throat kind of closes up is a sign of discomfort, of anxiety, of fear, even panic. So somebody could be trying to say something full of bluster and confidence, but if their voice is kind of tightening up, they're feeling the opposite. The voice is very, very hard to lie. The posture, when somebody is talking to you, but their feet are pointing in a different direction, they're wanting to get away from you, right? You know, how much the eyes engage, whether they're relaxed, they're slouching. The sense of power and leadership is all in the body. This is insane language. And great books have been written, far greater than my own book. I just wrote a chapter on it, about this language of nonverbal behavior, right? Posture, voice, facial expression, etc. And actions. So actions are a language that you're not paying attention to. When someone is continually late for an appointment or continually late in delivering work that they're supposed to deliver, that's a sign of passive aggression. That's a sign of some kind of character flaw. And if they do it once, they'll probably do it a second time. If they do it a second time, something's going on, right? If their desk is all messy, etc., these are signs of something going on internally. Pay attention to all of these details and it will really help you in life.
Money was my God. I used to tell Mom, hey, I don't believe in God. She said, oh, you believe in God, you just don't know what God you believe in. And I didn't really understand what she means. I get a little choked up thinking about it because at 30, I married my dream girl from the 4th grade. I'm a multi-millionaire. I live in a dream house. I have dream cars, dream boats, dream motorhomes. I have a ski mountain. I have a golf course, everything I ever dreamed of. But I wasn't happy. And I was always in search of happiness, buying things to be happy, buying more things to be happy, buying things to impress people for their approval, buying more things to impress people that I didn't even like. And this all culminated into 3 red flags, distinct inflection points of my past, defining moments that changed my perspective forever. But today I understand through my journey how to teach people to be happy, to have the right God, the right relationships in order to do so. So my dad was my hero from 5 to 10, but when I turned 10 years old, he forgot my birthday. It wasn't as if I was that hurt that he forgot. I knew he was busy and whatever, but he lied to me. I said, Dad, how could you forget my birthday? And without blinking, he said, son, I don't believe in birthdays. I was smart enough to know he had celebrated his birthday, his new wife's birthday, my siblings' birthday, other relatives. I've seen him blow out the candles. At that moment, it crushed me because I realized that my dad could straight out just lie to me, manipulate me, cheat me, the way that other people I had overheard said that he had lied, manipulated, cheated, oversold, back-end sold them. So I separated myself from my father. I told him I hated him. And at 30 years old, 20 years later, I get this birthday present, a big box, and it has my dad's name on it to me. I couldn't even open it. I still can't talk about it today without tearing up. I was like, wow, my dad gets it. He wants to have a relationship with me. He's sorry, right? I'm opening the present and this gorgeous custom-made sport coat was in there. And I put it on and I look inside and he tore out all the pockets. I couldn't wear the jacket. I went from complete bliss and joy to anger and hate again. I called my father totally upset. And he said, hey son, happy birthday. I said, don't happy birthday me. I got your present. He's like, oh, good. He goes, go ahead, hang it in the closet. I'm like, I'm not hanging it in the closet. Well, who would give you a gift you can't even wear or use? He said, well, it's not for wearing. I said, what are you talking about, son? I'm worried about you. Now, don't worry about me. I have everything I ever dreamed of. Worried about yourself. He said, no, you think money buys you love and happiness, and so did I. You're just like me. I said, I'm nothing like you. He said, no, son. He said, money does not buy love and happiness. I want you to hang in the closet, that jacket. I wanted to remind you that you can't take anything with you. In fact, I would love if you know you're going to be buried in the jacket, knowing you can't take anything with you. I wish somebody would have told me that when I was 30. I wouldn't be where I am today. And I said, Dad, I hate you. I'm nothing like you. I wasn't ready to hear that. F you, goodbye. The second red flag happened 6 years later. I went from being CEO of Samsung's phone division into being the CEO of the world's most renowned sports agency, which they made the movie Jerry Maguire about. Cameron Crowe followed Lee around, and I have not only all the money, but all the access. And I invite my best friend, Rob, since the 4th grade. I invite him to go to the Masters. I was telling you, I've been blessed to be with Warren Moon and Wayne Gretzky at the same time. They invited me to the Masters. Rob's a huge golf fan. He's told me since I was a kid how he dreamed about going to the Masters. So I said, Rob, I got a surprise for you. I want to take you to the Masters and do all these great things, hang out with all these great people. And without blinking, Rob tells me, no, I'm not going. I don't like who you hang out with and what you're doing. I don't want to go, and you better be careful, buddy. I said, come on, Rob, I'm not doing what those guys are doing. Come on, you got to go with me. He said, Dave, you can lie to me, but don't lie to yourself. I'm worried about you. I wasn't ready to hear it from my best friend, so I told him I hated him. I remember telling him, how dare you talk to me that way? All the things I've done for you, how dare you treat me this way? You're not my friend. I hate you, F you. I walked away. 2 weeks later, red flag number 2, my life would change forever. I had asked my wife if I could go to the Grammy Awards. She told me she didn't think it was a good idea, told me I wasn't paying attention to my work, I wasn't paying attention to the family, and I was partying way too much, and she was really concerned about me. I'm like, I'm okay. She's all, look, if you go, we're gonna have a problem. So I lied to her, told her I had a business meeting, changed clothes in the car, came home then at 5:30 in the morning, completely wasted, and there she was waiting for me. And somehow, to my surprise, she wasn't happy with me. She told me that she was leaving me. She told me that I'd better take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become, because I was going to be dead. Looking back, I get choked up because I can't believe my mindset at that moment. Because what I told her was, how dare you? Look around you. Who do you think made all this happen? Who do you think you're talking to? F you. You want to leave me? I'm leaving you. And I went to bed. I woke up in the morning full of hate. I hated my mom. I hated my dad. I hated my best friend. I hated my wife. And I was thinking about how I could punish all of them, what I could do to show them how dare they speak to me, act this way towards me, be so non-grateful towards the Almighty. And as I'm thinking about how and who I should call to take away their happiness, I look over in the closet, and there it was. A dumb jacket. And I stared at that jacket and my heart was full. And I realized at that moment, I don't hate my mom or my dad. I don't hate my best friend, and I certainly didn't hate my wife. I hated myself. I had to come to grips that I had become a liar, a cheater, a manipulator, an overseller, a back-end seller. And that I sat there that day taking stock in who I was and what I wanted to become. This is 2 years earlier than me losing everything. I will tell you, if somebody asked me about my bankruptcy, at that time, imagine having to ask your mom to move because you forgot to take the house out of her. The only reason I want to be rich, is for my mom. Only one reason I want to be rich is to buy her that house and a car, and I have to tell her, hey, you need to move out of your house because I lost your house. And I would tell you at that moment, it may have been one of the most challenging, painful things in my entire life, but here I am 14 years later to tell you it's the best thing, or one of the best things that's happened to me. Without that bankruptcy, without that experience, I would either be divorced or dead. And we're capable, through relativity of inflection points and defined moments of our past, to apply them to the 24 hours a day, to live in an infinite world of unlimited possibilities, probabilities, and perspectives in the future. Those three defining moments of my past, those red flags as I call them, the inflection points, defining moments, I've given meaning to not only empower me, but empower others to do the same. I'm on a mission to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. I'm looking for 1,000 people through all that I do. The podcast, the playbook, my movies, my TV show, my speeches, my books. I'm giving them all away for free for one reason. I'm looking for 1,000 people that will study, pay attention, and give intention to the lessons, the principles, the practices that I teach, so that they can carry it forward. They can empower 1,000 to empower 1,000. People who think I'm crazy when I say I'm going to change the world, create a collective consciousness of over 1 billion people to be happy. How am I going to do it? 1,000 people like you. That will empower 1,000 people like you, so that 1,000 of you will empower another 1,000 to help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. You are all being protected and promoted at all times. There is no punishment. Pain, setbacks, failures, and mistakes are an indicator you have a better place to be. Allow it to happen. Learn these lessons. Allow me to pay the dummy tax for you. And I promise I can do this in my lifetime. Empower 1,000 people like you to empower 1,000 to empower 1,000. 1,000 times 1,000's a million. 1,000,000 times 1,000's a billion. Simply practice identify when you have a need to be right, or a need to be offended, or a need to be separate, or inferior, or superior. How about just anxious, frustrated, guilty, resentful, or angry? If we can identify when we feel the ego, intuitively how the ego is interfering with our ease, and instead of resisting it, just stop. Sounds easy, but if you can stop and then breathe through your nose, out through your mouth, drop down to center, drop into the flow, drop into ease. Remind, remember, and recollect the source. Remind with, recollect with, remember with the source. The all-knowing, the all-powerful, the omniscient, the omnipresent that loves you more than your mom. If you can do that, stopping and dropping, you now can roll into what you want today, who you can help and who can help you. See, your frequency is your neighborhood. Your frequency is created by your neighbors. And if you're sitting in the projects on a lawn chair drinking a Colt 45, you may have all the skills in the world, all the knowledge in the world, all the desire in the world. And when you turn to your buddy on the lawn chair drinking and you say, hey, can you help me? How many options, opportunities, and touches of favor do you think someone in your neighborhood is going to be able to give you? I'm telling you, frequency and vibration-wise, surround yourself with the right people and the right ideas. Surround yourself with people that feed you. So many people are being bled. 80% of their time is around people that make them feel like crap. They're watching things that make them feel like crap. They're listening things that make them feel like crap. They're surrounding themselves with people that make themselves feel with crap. They're being bled all day long and wonder why they feel bled. Take my advice, ask for help, surround yourself with people that feed you and feed them. It'll be amazing the difference in your life.
What do you hope your legacy is?
Kindness. It's simple. If that's all I want on my tombstone. He was kind. It's funny because I get choked up telling people because it means that it means more to me than what other people see. Kind to your future self, kind to everyone is not easy. I walk by trash, I pick it up because it's kind. I smile at people. If I am using I just cancel it. I literally live in kindness, and I know it comes through me. I tell people all the time, say, why you cry? Especially my kids make fun of me. Dad, why you cry so easy? Because crying to me is like perspiration. When I work out too hard, my body tries to cool itself down. Well, when I have too much energy flowing through me, too much truth, inspiration, and emotion, The only way that I can allow it to come out is to cry, to allow my emotions to come out. That's how important kindness is to me. So I would please everyone, if you could do anything, be kind to your future self and just do good deeds. I promise you, everything you desire will manifest itself.
I've worked with thousands of addicts. I've never met one ever who said, I'm good enough, I'm worthy enough, and I just drink for fun. They drink because of the emptiness inside. And the emptiness is the needs that were not met as children, that they're still trying to fill. And so in 1984, I saw many things that fascinated me and were all to do with this feeling of not enoughness. I began to research the psychology of eating disorders, the psychology of not enoughness, what lies behind addictions. And over maybe 4 years, I developed my own method of therapy. And so I began to collate all the things that really worked for clients. And I realized you have to become what I call a detective, a good detective. A good detective lays out pictures and they look at them and then they try to work out what's happened in this scene. So I'd be looking at information and working out with the client, not for them. How did you become anorexic? How did you become bulimic? When did you become a hoarder? What happened when you began to have these issues? I never say what's wrong with you. I never even say how are you feeling. I always say what happened. Let's track back like a detective what was going on in that moment. And after you've got that information, which is very easy to get when you ask the right questions, the next thing is to become more like a dentist than a detective, and you start removing all those toxic beliefs. Look, just because your dad never saw you, just because you were the 5th girl and you should have been a boy, that's not you. You're meant to be you. And then you become a coder, and you code in and wire in and fire in better beliefs, rather like if my computer started to slow down, I'd get an X and you go, it's got a bug in it. I'm going to upgrade your software. But we have a bug in us, and we need to upgrade our software. And then in doing that, I realized that really all of my clients could only have one of 3 things wrong with them. And the 3 things are always, I'm not enough. That's the huge thing. I'm not enough. And if you start from I'm not enough, then you need more. More cake, more drinks, more drugs, more sex, more stuff, more shopping, more followers, because we've got so into I'm not enough and I need more. And it's actually very easy to fix that. The next thing wrong is what I want isn't available. I want love, but I'm not lovable. I want success, but I didn't go to college. I want to be free of depression, but I've got the depression gene or the alcoholic gene. I'm not really convinced they even exist, but the belief that I want something so much and I'm going after it, but it's not available. It's this block, these blocking thoughts, these limiting beliefs. And the third one is I'm different, so I can't connect. And that sounds silly, but it's actually the bane of people's lives, because we're tribal people, wired to connect, wired to belong, wired to find connection and avoid rejection. But we live in a world now where we connect with our screen and we connect with our phone, and it's really damaging people. So I always say, look, don't make it complicated. Look for those 3 things. You'll find them. And when you look for those, it can only be one of those 3 things or degrees of it. It just makes life so simple, because clients love it when you say, look, the only thing wrong with you is you don't think you're good enough. And that's a belief, and here's how it works. You think a thought, and the thought makes you feel a feeling. And the feeling makes you behave in a certain way, which you justify because you think the thought. So don't worry about changing the behavior, or indeed the feeling, change the thought. And I think a lot of conventional therapy is so busy trying to change the behavior or the actions or the feelings, when the law of control says it all starts with a thought. And so I really like to simplify what makes humans tick, because what's the point of making it complicated? How does that help anyone who says, well, I'm messed up and so hard to change and people can't change? It's like, well, that's not correct. Who taught you that? From the minute you're born, you're changing. Most of us have had an experience of eating something, being violently sick, and thought, oh, I could never eat that again. I could never look at whiskey again. There's no way I could ever eat shellfish again. But it's very simple to think a different thought, because we own our thoughts and we can change our thoughts. And if we just learn to question, why do I think that? Who told me that was true? Question a thought, upgrade your thought, update your thought. For women especially, all these thoughts, you can never find love after 50. Nobody wants somebody with cellulite. If you're a successful woman, a man won't like you. Well, that's not true. There's lots of women getting married for the first time at 50, including me. Your lovability's got nothing to do with the numbers on the scales or the numbers in your clothing label or the numbers on your birth certificate. And you've got to stop all of that and just believe that you're great, and you can be even greater when you stop defining who you are by what the numbers say. Most of us, we make a belief without realizing that that belief turns around and makes us, and then we have something called confirmation bias. We now look for proof that that belief is real. So I could have a belief. I'm painfully shy and I can't speak to people. Like, that belief is making me now, because I stress about speaking to people. I might blush, I avoid situations, and now I'm looking for proof, the confirmation bias. Look, last time I spoke, I went bright red, I got all tongue-tied. That person, I could see they weren't interested. I felt like an idiot. So I better make sure I carry on not speaking. So you have to switch it. I've made a belief. Why don't I change that to, I can talk to people, other people do it. I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means I should listen more, talk less, but I can engage with people. If I can talk to my friends or my pet or someone, I can talk to people. I'm making a different belief. Now I'm looking for confirmation bias of how, oh, I spoke to a guy in the store and they were engaging. And if I can speak to one person, I can speak to many, and I can learn. All of my clients' greatest pain was the lie they told themselves and the story they bought into. And I always say, listen, if you're prepared to tell yourself a lie, which is, if I look at cake, I gain weight, everything I touch falls apart, no one in my family has ever done anything, I've got the depression gene, we don't even know if that's true. That's probably a lie. When the people say, I've eaten like a horse all weekend, I'm assuming you peed occasionally, so you didn't really eat nonstop like a horse all weekend. Let's change that. So if your lie is, I gain weight by looking at food, you might as well say, I got a super fast metabolism, my body is a fat burning machine. Is that true? But it doesn't matter, because saying you eat like a horse is also not true. But here's how it works. You got a belief. You've made it, it's making you, and you're looking for proofs, and make a better belief. And people say, no, it's amazing. I just thought a different thought and everything changed on a dime. You know, procrastination and self-sabotage is nothing more than a reaction to a thought that I'm not enough. So many people are so scared of failing that they think, well, I've written a book, but I'll never show it to anyone. I've got an idea, but what if it doesn't work? And when they begin to see, oh, it all tracks back to a thought which I'm free to change, it's very liberating, it's very empowering. So your mind's job is to make your thoughts real. The job of your mind is to listen to your thoughts and to start to make them real. And it doesn't have any choice in that, but your job is to think better thoughts, which makes your mind's job easier. So let's imagine you're saying to your mind, if I get dumped one more time, it will kill me. If one more person ghosts me, that's it. It will ruin my life. If one more person rejects me, I'm just going to never go out again. Now your mind's job is to make you act in a way that avoids rejection, probably by becoming very solitary, not asking for anything. But if you were to say to your mind, hey mind, you know, I love connecting. I'm finding love and love is finding me. Your mind's going to do a different job. We have to remember something. The mind has no choice but to act on our thoughts. But we have an incredible choice to think better thoughts. And if you could look in your body and see the inflammation, the stress hormones, the cortisol you create from thinking negative thoughts, you would never do it again. So we got to remember our thoughts are not our thoughts. They're a blueprint that our mind, body, and psyche are trying to make real. And if you could only think better thoughts, you'd give your mind an easy job. So it may sound a bit Pollyanna, but actually whatever has gone on in your early childhood, you still can reframe it and say that will never happen again. I always think of your life being like a clock. And if your life was a clock, then your childhood is only the first 7 minutes. And it can be awful. And I mean, I have clients who tell me stories that are so horrendous, but we're not fragile. Human beings are actually incredibly resilient. And no matter how bad the first 7 minutes is, I mean, look at Oprah Winfrey's first 7 minutes, you can still make the rest of the clock, the next 53 minutes, amazing. One of my clients told me her story, which was that her parents tried to terminate her in the womb because they were very young and they didn't want a baby. And they told her this story and they said, you know, you were so strong and so meant to be. And she said, every time I heard that story, I thought, yes, against all the odds, I was meant to be here. I must be here for something amazing. And she is an amazing person with an amazing career. Very well known. But then another client told me that same story. I found out my parents tried to terminate me and I survived their attempt. And so what point is there? How could I even be anything if my own parents didn't want me? Then I'm clearly not worth anything. But the other one said, if my own parents didn't want me and I survived that, I must be worth everything.
Are you familiar with Alan Watts? I just recently heard an interview where he was talking about near the end of his life. He goes, some days I feel like I'm stuck together by wire and sticky bits of tape. And it makes me think, should I question what I'm doing? And he says, no, I shouldn't question what I'm doing. I'm a person like anyone else. And really the show must go on. Like, just because I'm a person who feels these things too doesn't mean that the teaching needs to end. Do you ever find that when you're working with a client, there's a story that just really rocks you?
The saddest stories I find are often when I work with teenage boys who never had a father in their life, or I've had a few clients who said, you know, I was an IVF baby, or my mother just found someone and I don't even know who my dad is. And I worked with a kid a little while ago whose parents had gone to Brazil and adopted him, and they loved him very much and they brought him back. But he couldn't find his real family. They just found him somewhere and he had no ability to trace that family. And so his story was, I can't find my birth mother or father. I don't belong here. And I talked to him a bit and said, you know, darling, you have to celebrate being Brazilian. You know, you can go to Brazil, you can learn Brazilian. Brazil was actually in the World Cup at the time, and you can still find that. And when he came back the next time, he dyed his hair the color of the Brazilian flag. I thought, oh, he's really taken that on board. And he was a kid that was so lost and so angry with his parents because they hadn't understood that when they took him and gave him a better life, they took him away from what he thought mattered. But then, of course, he realized that he could go to Brazil, embrace he might never, and he probably would never find those parents, but he could find the Brazilianness in him.
We think that when we experience regret, it's somehow an aberration, when in fact, everybody experiences regret. Regret makes us human. Regret is part of the human condition. What's more, we think that regret makes us weaker, when in fact, the research shows that, done right, regret can make us stronger, that we can enlist our regrets as an engine for forward progress. In a weird way, regret also taught me about what makes a good life, because as I had collected 16,000 regrets from people in 105 countries, and when they told me their regrets, in a sense they were also telling me about what made life worth living. Like, I understand that no regrets philosophy. The problem is that it's not possible, because we all have regrets. Now, we should try to minimize our future regrets, but the idea that you should never look backward on your life and say, oh, I wish I had done things differently, is actually a terrible blueprint for living. And I think one of the problems is, especially in North America, is that we're a little over-indexed on positivity. Positive emotions are incredibly important, and they should outnumber our negative emotions, but we need some negative emotions because they instruct us. And our most prominent negative emotion is regret, because regret teaches us, it instructs us, it clarifies us. It clarifies what's what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. And so we need to understand how to deal with our negative emotions. We can't ignore them like no regrets. We can't wallow in them. What we need to do is we need to think about our regrets, and when we think about our regrets, the evidence is pretty clear that they can help us make better decisions, solve problems faster, be better strategists, find greater meaning in our life. Regret hurts. There's no question about that. But here's the thing. Regret also instructs, and you can't have one without the other. So if you avoid the pain, you don't get any of the learning. So what you have to do is be able to process that pain. And I think there's a way for us to do that, to take our regrets, use them as signals. We haven't been taught to do that. That's the problem. We have this weird approach, we have this weird view of negative emotions. Like some of us think, oh, positive all the time, That leads to delusion. Some of us get so absorbed in our negative emotions that they, in some ways, exonerate us from making progress. That's a bad idea too. What we need to do is we need to process our negative emotions in a systematic way, and I think there's a good way to do that. There's some interesting research on this. One of the things that we think about disclosure of our vulnerabilities and our setbacks and so forth is that people will like us less. And in fact, they actually like us more when we do that. And so I actually had a lot of respect for people willing to disclose and willing to explain. And I felt like I was actually helping them make sense of this regret. So it wasn't that much of a downer. The other thing about it, and which is this, is that over and over and over again, people kept talking about the same 4 core regrets. These 4 regrets are revealing. By revealing our regrets, we are revealing what we value the most. To me, these 4 core regrets operate as a photographic negative of the good life. That is, if we understand what people regret the most, we actually understand what they value the most. So in a weird way, these 16,000 regrets are not a downer as much as they are a pointer to what makes life worth living. The 4 regrets are these: foundation regrets. Foundation regrets are, if only I'd done the work. These are regrets people have about not studying hard enough in university, or not taking care of their health, or smoking, or not eating right, or not saving money. Small decisions that accumulate to bad consequences. The second one, huge category, boldness regrets. These are regrets that people have that say, if only I'd taken the chance. They didn't start a business. They didn't ask that crush out for a date. They didn't travel. They had an opportunity at one point in their life to do something beyond play it safe. They chose not to do that, and now they regret it. Third category are moral regrets. If only I'd done the right thing. These are people who, at a certain point in their life, could do the right thing or the wrong thing. They do the wrong thing, and it still bugs them, which is in some way, its own way, heartening. It shows that I think people want to be good. And then the final one are connection regrets. Connection regrets are, if only I'd reached out. And these are regrets about relationships, where you have a relationship, or you should have had a relationship, and it comes apart, usually through drifts, and you want to reach out, but you don't because you think it's going to be awkward and the other side's not going to care, so it drifts out even more, and then in some cases it ends up being too late. These 4 regrets, to me, reveal, as I said earlier, what makes life worth living. What do we want out of life? We want a stable foundation. We want some stability. We want a chance to do something. We want a chance to learn and grow and lead a psychologically rich life. We want to do the right thing. I'm convinced that most of us want to do the right thing. And what else do we want? We want love. We want connection to other people.
So if I'm a listener and I'm sitting here thinking, there is a connection regret that I have, I should reach out to that person. And there's probably a reason why I haven't. I mean, there's something that's blocking it. What would you suggest I do? Like, what unlocks that for somebody?
Okay, really, really, really important. Okay, so I think the 2 barriers are this. You think it's going to feel awkward, and you think the other side is not going to care. And here's the reality, both the reality of all these people I interviewed, but also the reality of a lot of research in social science. It's much less awkward than you think. 2, the other side almost always cares. You're just wrong about that. And one of the things that I did, I mean, I have a scene in the book where I talk to somebody who's saying, oh, I lost this, I drifted apart from this friend and I'm not sure I should reach out, and if I reach out, she's going to think it's creepy. And I finally said, okay, hold on. How would you feel if she reached out to you? And she said, oh my God, that would be the greatest thing. I'd be so touched. And I'm like, well, hello, like, you know, extrapolate from your own experience there. And so I really believe if there's a lesson in this book, it's certainly the lesson for me, is that if you are at the juncture that you described, should I reach out or should I not reach out? You've already answered the question. I think the lesson is always reach out. Don't ignore it, don't dodge it, just confront it. It's much less fearsome than you think. And this way that I think that we can process our regrets is very healthy. So, you know, like I feel like there's 3 simple steps that you can take to turn your regrets into engines for progress. One of them is to reframe the regret and the way you think about yourself. So a lot of times when we have a regret, one reason that we try to avoid it is that if we really confront it, we start lacerating ourselves, saying, you know, our self-talk is, you're an idiot, what are you talking about? And what we should do instead is, it sounds gooey, but what we should do instead is treat ourselves with kindness. There's a body of research in what's called self-compassion, which is treating ourselves with kindness rather than contempt. Thinking about our own missteps as part of the human condition, not something that only we do. Looking at our missteps not as fully definitional of who we are, but as just one part of who we are. And so just being a little better to ourselves. The second thing you can do, which we see, which is a reason why we had 16,000 people offer up their regrets, is disclosure. Disclosure is itself inherently valuable. And we know that it relieves a burden, but the other thing, when we talk about our regrets or even write about them, we take this blobby, amorphous, negative emotion and convert it into words, and that makes it less fearsome, and it begins the sense-making process. So there's a pile of evidence showing that talking about our regrets, even writing about them privately, is a way to defang them. And finally, what we need to do, which is essential, is we need to, you know, we can look inward, all right, we can express outward, but then we got to move forward. And the way to do that, in my mind, is to take a step back and extract a lesson from it. What would you tell your best friend to do? If you were looking back on this decision 10 years from now, what would you want to have done? If someone else were in your position, what would she do? And I think this process of looking inward and treating ourselves with some kindness, expressing outward and disclosing the regret as a way to make sense of it, and then moving forward by taking a step back and extracting a lesson is relatively simple to do and allows us to take these regrets and not be scared of them and not let them debilitate us, but to enlist them as forces for moving forward. What I like to do is, I'm sort of trying to reach the people on either side of that. So the people who feel debilitated by their regrets, my view is, listen, take one, go through this process, you can enlist it as a force for good, but I also want to do a wake-up call to the people who think they don't have any regrets, because they're making a big mistake too. And so what I want to do is, in some sense, I guess, normalize it, because it is normal. That's the thing. Like, you know, regrets are part of the human condition. They exist for a reason. They're part of our cognitive machinery. The only people without regrets are 5-year-olds, people with brain damage, and sociopaths. The rest of us have regrets, you know? And so instead of denying that humanity, let's embrace it and use it.
And you had a song early in your career that was just, I mean, it's iconic. Extraordinary success. What was that like for you, having one of your early songs take off in that way?
I was doing a lot of spiritual practice at that time of my life. Before that first album came out, I'd met a meditation master. So I had a lot of tools, you could say, and my perspective on who I am and what's important, being that I was famous young, and then, you know, dove deep into this Eastern philosophy and spirituality and meditation. So I had these really good tools for becoming mega famous again overnight with this song, which was, this is not me. I'm not what I do. Like, who I am is not what I do. I'm not the voice in my head, which for some people, they can't even wrap their head around that. So, you know, that's a big one. you know, I know that the periods of my life where that practice is in place, everything's a bit easier. We're all connected, you know. I think that's the truth, which even that one some people struggle with. But that's my personal belief. I think that makes everything easier. Again, it doesn't have to be doing the Guru Gita for an hour and a half every day like I was. I mean, I went hardcore. I did a month silence once. You know, what are you going to do with this experience? Keep your feet planted on the ground. I used those tools to be able to cope with that. And it's transient. I mean, I'd been famous and then not famous. And so once you go through the rhythm of that, you have no attachment to that. You don't define that as meaning anything.
Dealt with being in the public eye, the pressures of you know, being famous and people knowing who you are and thinking they know you when they don't and all of that stuff. So any kind of resentment or bitterness I had about these things, I got it out of my system. And then I didn't work for 2 years and nobody bugged me and I had no money. So I was really lucky to have had it and then lost it and been able to come back into the industry wanting to do it with no bitterness, you know.
I don't place any importance on those things, and I was able to value the good parts of it. It's true to say there have been the periods of my life where I've been the most successful and I've had more money than I have now, and I have been unhappy. I think something I've learned is the more you have doesn't mean, you know, the happier you are, or it just more things mean more problems and more things to manage. It's easy to sit there and kind of tell somebody else about that when they haven't had the chance to experience that. All I know is that because I've been blessed to have some of those opportunities, the gift of that is I don't need those things. And living simply, there's a lot to be said for it. There's a lot to be said for it because it frees up a lot of space to do things that do make you happy.
If you could speak directly to somebody who's struggling with their confidence, what would you say to them?
I would say you're not the thoughts in your head. They're just thoughts. And you can make up new ones. Do something with your hands. Go outside, walk, exercise. The thing is, the mind's nature is to turn in on itself. And if you just let it run away with itself, it'll drive you mad. So this is a work in progress. This is not something you just overcome. You have to find tools, whether it's meditation, whether it's writing down negative thought patterns and creating more positive ones. Like, you know, it's just finding ways to work with the mind. The mind can be a great help if you can figure out ways to stop it taking over. First and foremost, you have to believe in yourself, because if you don't have that fire, nobody else is going to believe in you or buy into that either. My mum's the one that taught me never give up. My mum was really tough, but children love a boundary, and I think it's something that's really stayed with me. So when things are really hard, I don't quit. But if there's a moment where I'm truly lost, it's a courageous step to say, I'm going to walk away. So it's just checking in with yourself. And I think we know when we're just being scared, and we know when it's like, no, I genuinely don't know what I'm doing or what I want. You just never know what is around the corner when you make these changes. We all get so scared to make a change. And beautiful things happen when you liberate yourself to let go of everything and go, well, I'll just quit music. It still found its way back to me. And I'm sitting here now with this album that's like the best work I've ever done, that I'm so incredibly proud of. I don't care what anyone thinks. I would never have thought I could be sat here now confidently with this body of work. No way. It didn't seem possible, but it was the courageous step to accept that I didn't know what I wanted to do, and to, I did other things. And it's okay to have periods where you're just living. I think we're in a world where it's like, do, create. And it's like, well, not everybody is built that way. Some of us move a bit slower. We're a bit more fragile. You know, it's not about the amount that you do. It's just about the care that you take with what you do, I think. I got dropped by a label, an album got shelved. I never really understood why, or it was never explained to me. You know, sometimes you just think the universe is trying to tell you something. You're working really hard and it's just not working. It's just not working. So it's not about quitting. It's about realizing that you don't know.
Who or what is your greatest inspiration in your life?
I don't think it's any person in particular. I think people are my inspiration, and probably the underdog, you know? I like seeing people kind of struggle and come through difficulties, and that kind of thing really inspires me. So probably the underdog.
Natalie, what's the legacy you hope to leave behind?
I'd like just to be known for someone who was wholly who they are and, you know, honest in their truth about it through my art, I could say. That would be nice. So I really hope that for anyone who gets the chance to listen to Firebird, it's dealing with, I guess, finding your independence and, you know, finding the balance between your strength and fragility, and perhaps finding your strength in your fragility. And I hope that there's also some songs there to dance to. So I hope for anyone out there that gets a chance to hear it, that it makes you happy.